Why have we witnessed the popularity of military coups with notable and an indisputable civilian support despite the adoption and endorsement of the Malabo Declaration in 2022? This is also substantiated by the increased number of suspended AU member states, constitutional crisis, and open disregard for the rule of law, as well as continued dynasties in democratic republic systems. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, while preparing my remarks for today, I contemplated the experience from which I would draw my reflections, either as one of the 5 African youth ambassadors or on my work with political parties at the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. None of these professional capacities proved sufficient, because I do realize that it is a privilege and it may be limiting in representing the majority of African youth. So today, Your Excellencies, allow me to speak simply as a young African citizen. First, the state of democracy, not just in Africa, but globally, is concerning. Unfortunately, I cannot remind us of the euphoria and hope that the dawn of democracy brought in the 70s and 80s, because I simply was not born yet. The question is, why is democracy, which in principle is very progressive, losing arguments that it should win, and military governments winning arguments that they should lose? Second, for young people, economic challenges such as unemployment are rampant, while the limited ability to adapt to climate change leave us questioning the extent to which democracy can deliver on public goods, and the extent to which youth are co-creators in designing responses to the crises that I've mentioned above, which have both global and regional implications. These are the realities we need the courage to address and to reflect on at this and other fora. I guess that leaves Africa at a very critical point, and that is we are a continent in transition. How can we understand democracy as it is and democracy as it should be? The answer is in committing to inclusive and functional institutions. Admittedly, participatory governance in and of itself is not a solution. However, it enables co-creation, an acknowledgement that in the interim, while we face the challenges that I have alluded to, people, the state, and their governments are in partnerships to creating the solutions we want to see. In line with the global historical context, I want to share with you an account retold by a Tanzanian politician I met. It is the story of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, after whom the AU's Peace and Security Building is named. In conversation with a Singaporean statesman, President Nyerere shared a well-known adage: when elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. However, a question ensued: what happens when elephants make love? And as you guessed it right, the grass still suffers. So Africa, yes, finds itself at a point of several transitions, not just in democracy, but also in terms of its demographics. There are emerging technologies that ought to change our lives in unimaginable ways, as well as geopolitical tensions. So are we, as Africans, aware of this potential and prepared enough to capitalize on the opportunities that our current challenges bring? In reference to the adage, the grass should adapt and stop its suffrage, regardless of what the elephants do. Some of the recommendations that I will browse through because of limited time include the development of national action plans. The international community too, our development partners, are a key part of this equation. The Ezulwini Consensus and the calls for representation at the international level must be considered. They are not a threat, but rather in stark contrast, they signal a hope for the same inclusive architecture that I have underscored as necessary at the national and regional levels, without which international institutions are implicated, they become less attractive and create gaps for alternatives that may not be in the best interest of democracy, of global security, as well as development. In closing, Your Excellencies, I would be remiss if I leave this podium without teaching you a bit of Shona, and I am Shona speaking. In my culture, when people say good morning, we say makadi, and the response is tiripo kana muripo. Tiripo kana muripo means I am well if you are well. I am okay if you are okay. And that attests to the oneness of our humanity. Such concepts are found also in South Africa, in Ubuntu, as well as in Kinyarwanda, Ubumuntu. Our humanity is interconnected. Conflicts such as the Russo-Ukraine war, tensions in the Middle East, as well as geopolitical tensions, have implications which are felt disproportionately on the African continent, and we all need to act together. Overall, I'm yet to be convinced that the celebrations we see towards unconstitutional changes of government are indeed a clear-cut jubilation and a preference for military leadership, but rather a protest against bad leadership and against bad governance. Ladies and gentlemen, what African Youth Harbour is not just a mere dissatisfaction with the status quo. It is a hope for a different reality, and a signal that maybe in protest, we can finally realize aspirations for a peaceful and prosperous Africa. The onus is on you, our leaders, to direct that hope and that energy towards what we rightly know is sustainable, and that is neither military rule nor civilian impunity. May God bless Africa. Thank you.
And on the back of that powerful youth manifesto, it's